Imagine believing that no matter what you do, nothing you try will ever change how things turn out. It's a belief that seeps into your thinking without alarm bells, reshaping your expectations of the future. That mental shift lies at the heart of the hopelessness theory of depression, a cognitive approach that traces how certain patterns of thinking, combined with life's challenges, can lead the mind into emotional paralysis. Developed by Abramson, Metalski, and Alloy in 1989, it expands upon earlier theories like learned helplessness, offering deeper insight into why some people become depressed after negative events while others don't. At its core, this theory operates like a chain reaction. Negative life events, specific cognitive vulnerabilities, hopelessness, depression. If someone tends to infer that setbacks are caused by internal, stable, and global factors, they're more likely to conclude that nothing will ever change. When they believe negative effects will follow, and that something is fundamentally wrong with themselves, the outcome is an emotional state of hopelessness, an active ingredient of certain depressive symptoms. These cognitive vulnerabilities include three inferential styles. First, attributing bad events to stable and global causes, rather than dismissing them as temporary or isolated. Second, expecting negative consequences to ripple across many areas. And third, internalizing a negative self-characteristic, that the event reveals something flawed about oneself. When all three align, a single setback can feel unavoidable, permanent, and personally diagnostic of worthlessness. Research shows this pattern doesn't lead to depression on its own. It needs the fuel of real hardship. That's why the hopelessness theory is considered a diathesis stress model. A person with these cognitive tendencies may remain stable until a crisis triggers the shift into hopelessness, and eventually, depressive symptom onset. One powerful extension of the theory is Rose Abramson's developmental elaboration. They propose that early experiences, especially child maltreatment or emotional invalidation, can train these negative inferential styles. A child who regularly receives criticism may come to believe bad events reflect stable, global flaws in themselves. Over time, that becomes hardwired and shapes responses to later adversity. The theory also highlights a specific subtype referred to as hopelessness depression. This form requires at least 2 weeks of sustained hopelessness, along with symptoms such as fatigue, diminished motivation, sleep disturbance, self-blame, concentration problems, or even suicidal thought. In that context, hopelessness isn't just a feeling. It becomes a clinical hallmark of depression. This framework diverges from Aaron Beck's cognitive triad, which emphasizes negative beliefs about the self, world, and future. While there's overlap, hopelessness theory adds specificity by focusing on how inferences about cause, consequence, and identity interact to predict who's at risk. Following stress empirical evaluation has supported many core elements. Studies show that people with pessimistic inferential styles are more likely to develop hopelessness and subsequently depressive symptoms after negative events. Yet longitudinal tests have produced mixed results. Sometimes attributional style predicts future symptoms only when baseline depression is already present. Still, results extend beyond theory alone. Recent clinical studies show that among veterans or juvenile detainees, high cognitive vulnerability predicted worse outcomes in therapy for depression, unless adaptive inferential feedback, i.e. social support correcting negative thinking, was present. Adaptive inferential feedback becomes a cornerstone of recovery. If someone in your network challenges your negative reasoning by offering a different perspective on causes or consequences, that can shift you from hopelessness back toward hope. Over time, positive inferences build resilience, especially if paired with emotionally supportive relationships. By contrast, fixed, pessimistic explanatory styles, believing that bad events are permanent, pervasive, and personal, often predict depressive relapse. That's called the weakest link hypothesis in youth populations. Whichever inferential style is the strongest negative predictor sets vulnerability level. The hopelessness model also contributes to understanding suicidal ideation. When someone experiences sustained hopelessness, believing that suffering is inescapable, suicidal thoughts often emerge not out of impulse, but as a cognitive escape plan from a future seen as endlessly bleak. So what does this mean for awareness and healing? First, understanding your inner explanations after pain is critical. Do you say, "It's always my fault," or "This affects everything in my life forever"? That fixed lens is hazardous. Becoming aware is the first pivot toward mental freedom. Next, therapy modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy for depression, and resilience-based programs often target this explanatory style. By teaching people to question stability, will this last forever? Scope. Does this influence every area of my life? Yeah, and personal worth. They can weaken hopeless inferential habits. Programs like the Penn Resiliency Program have shown preventative efficacy by reshaping explanatory styles in youth, reducing incidence of later depression by teaching optimistic and realistic interpretations of setbacks. Importantly, hopelessness is not a character flaw. It's a learned vulnerability often rooted in life experiences. That means it can be unlearned through therapy, compassionate feedback, and small shifts in language. Hope doesn't emerge as false positivity, but builds through evidence, noticing small successes, recognizing changeable causes, and separating self-worth from setbacks. The theory offers both a map and a mirror. A map showing how depression may have arisen, and a mirror showing how your mind currently interprets the world. You can see your triggers, your patterns, your risk. But you also see where resilience grows. Positive events interpreted as stable, expansive, and self-affirming can counter hopelessness over time. In recapping, the hopelessness theory of depression argues that experiencing negative events in conjunction with a cognitive style of stable, global, and self-blaming explanations produces hopelessness. That hopelessness can trigger a subtype of depressive disorder, and that both risk and recovery depend on explanatory style and social feedback. Clinically, this model helps therapists identify individuals at risk for relapse and informs interventions designed to reshape belief systems before hopelessness takes grip. It also explains why some people handle adversity resiliently while others spiral, because their explanatory frameworks differ. In conclusion, the hopelessness theory provides a relational blueprint between mind, life experience, and symptoms. It invites compassion for those who feel trapped by their interpretations, while showing a path toward mental liberation. It teaches that depression isn't destiny. It's a predictable reaction to certain explanatory styles and stressors. And better still, it's changeable. If you're watching this because you find your own explanations feel rigid and catastrophic, remember, thoughts can be rephrased. Life events don't define you. Causes don't have to last. The future doesn't have to be bleak. You can gently question beliefs, seek corrective feedback, and edge toward hope, even if steps come slowly. Depression may steal your sense of possibility, but hope can still be reclaimed through understanding how your mind frames the world. The hopelessness theory doesn't just explain depression, it reveals hope.